Okay, guys, let's look at Unit 4, Lesson 3, Revisiting Proportional Relationships. The first portion of this lesson is called Recipe Ratios. A recipe calls for 1/2 cup of sugar and 1 cup of flour. Complete the table to show how much sugar and flour to use in different numbers of batches of the recipe. Okay, so this kind of reminds me of Unit 2, Lesson 7, when we learned about proportional tables, okay? Now, I'm not sure how our last developer taught this, but you could look at this as this is the X, which is the input, Y would be the output, okay? And what I mean by saying input, right? Whatever goes in this column, something happens and it shoots out that's the output, okay? It gives the answer out, all right? So let me get rid of those annotations, all right? So to figure out what process happened, we have to do division, which is Y divided by X, to figure out the constant of proportionality, okay? So look at this table. Is there a row that gave us a value for both quantities? If you guessed the first row, you are absolutely correct because each row after that has a missing value of each quantity, okay? So I'm going to highlight that to show you guys what I'm talking about, all right? So now I want to divide Y divided by X, regardless if it's a fraction and so on, okay? So I'm going to do 1 divided by 1/2. Now keep in mind, in our last lesson we practiced, or in the last 2 lessons we practiced our fluency skills when dividing fractions. Anytime we divide a fraction, it's like multiplying by its reciprocal, which is called the multiplicative inverse. Okay, so, and let me change that to a dot because we're talking about variables and so on. But 1 times 2, you could put a 1 underneath that 1. So 1 times 2, it would equal 2 over 1. All right. Now the denominator would not be the same. Well, the denominator, we really don't need it. So our constant of proportionality is K is equal to 2. Okay? K is equal to 2. So now with the constant of proportionality, what I want to do is I want to take that 2 and either multiply or divide to find these missing values. Okay? So in this column, we're actually multiplying by 2 going this way. Okay? So let's start with the easy one, which is 1. What's 1 times 2? If you guessed 2, you're absolutely correct. Now for this one, what's 3/4 times 2? Now, if you don't know what's 3/4 times 2 right off the top of your head, you could multiply going straight across, which is 6 over 4. And then you could simplify it, which would be 3 over 2. You can ask yourself, well, how many times can 2 go into 3 without going over? If you guess 1 time, you're absolutely correct. And then you have 1 left over, and it's going to be 1 and 1/2. Okay? Now, in a different color, I'm going to pick blue in a different color because in this way, I'm going to be dividing by my constant. I'm going to be dividing by my constant, which would be divided by 2 on both sides, okay? So, not on both sides, but going from this way, I'm dividing by the constant. Now, even though I'm writing it like this, let me change the way I'm writing it because I don't want you guys to be confused. I'm going to divide by 2 like this. There we go. I'm dividing the outputs by 2 are the Y values. So, just like what I said in any other lesson, before we work with those mixed numbers, we want to change it to its improper fraction form, guys, okay? So, we need to change 1 3/4. Let me write out the expression. 1 3/4 needs to change to its improper form, which is 1 times 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Then add your product to the numerator, which would be 7 over 4. divided by 2. Now I want to apply the multiplicative inverse, which is 7 over 4 times, not 2 over 1, but 1 over 2. And if you're wondering where I got that 1 from, it's always understood that with whole numbers, 1 is underneath it, okay? So when I multiply going straight across, I should get 7 times 1 and 4 times 2, which is 7/8. Okay. Now for the next one, I'm going to change that, which is 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 is 5/2. I quickly did that, guys. I'll insert something in the slide to where, you guys can reference to how to change a mixed fraction into an improper fraction. And it's divided by 2. Keep in mind that was a number that we always put underneath whole numbers, or to change a whole number into a fraction, we always put 1 underneath. So now, anytime you divide a fraction, you want to apply the multiplicative inverse, which is times, and I'm going to use my dot, change that dot, times 1/2. So it's going to be 5 over 4. Okay, 5 over 4. So if I have 5 over 4, you need to ask yourself, well, how many times can 4 go into 5 without going over? You guess 1 time. You're absolutely correct. And the whole number, which is the quotient at the top, will be 1. The remainder would be your numerator, and the divisor will be the denominator. Okay? So if you have any question on how I completed this table, any question on how did I change my mixed numbers into improper fractions and so on, please visit your manager's Google Meet session. All right, guys, I'm moving on to the next problem of this lesson, and I'll see you guys then.